Chad Carnes with MCA Connect, and you're watching another episode of 5 Good Minutes in Microsoft Dynamics AX. This is the time of year, one of my favorite times of the year, where you tell people what you're thankful for, and you say thank you. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you guys. We've had close to 3,000 views. We're averaging 4.5 minutes per view, which is incredible on the MCA Connect website. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank my marketing team, my human resource team, Cousin Blair in the analytics department for 5 Good Minutes, and the executive team for not kicking me off the blogosphere just yet. And in order to show my appreciation, we're going to start a new section at the end and trying to up that 4.5 minutes, where we just answer your questions. So if you send us a email or you make a comment and ask us a question, and you also say something humorous, and it's a good question, we might try to answer your question in the last minute and a half. In this piece, we're going to show you a piece of functionality called Favorites, and it's really how to build your own module, save yourself clicks, and save your whole company time and money by being able to click directly into grids. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into AX, and we're going to go ahead and go to My Favorites. Go ahead and rename that, and you right-click and say Rename Group, and you say I'm going to rename this to Chad's Module. So I'm creating my own module here up in Favorites. So now the next thing I'm going to go ahead and here do is we're going to go ahead and go to All Vendors. Today we're going to pretend we're an AP clerk. So I got a note from Denise who says, "Hey Chad, you always cover AR stuff. Why can't you cover AP stuff?" So today, Denise, I'm doing just that. So in here, I'm going ahead and putting ABCD as my filter for the vendors, and I'm going to go ahead and save that as a filter as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder in my module, and we're just going to call it Grids. So most of AP departments are generally the AP users are separated by the vendor names alphabetically. At least that's been my experience. So we're just going to pretend like this person is responsible for the first 4 letters there. So I went ahead and right-clicked on All Vendors, and I added it as a favorite. And now I'm going to go in and we're going to edit All Vendors there. We're going to edit All Vendors, and we're going to edit the query. And we're going to make it the same query I just saved. So now if you open up Grids and click All Vendors, it takes us directly to that filter. So we're eliminating maybe 5 or 6 clicks. So the next thing I did here was I also went into All Purchase Orders, and I filtered it by open orders and by the same vendor numbers. And I went to Open Invoices. So I figured that accounts payable clerk would probably need to look at vendor information, look at PO information, and maybe what hadn't been paid yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and add those to the favorites as well. We're going to go back in. We're going to organize our favorites. We're going to we're going to open up our grids, and we're going to edit the query on each one of these to be the query that we had selected. So now when we click those buttons, it'll go not only to that grid, but it will also go to the filter, filtering it by just the vendors we want to see in each one of those grids. So now I'm going to go ahead and come in here and, I like to break things into like actions and reports or grids and reports. But now you can see I'm just kind of demoing here how we get there. But the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a second folder here, and we're going to go ahead and call it reports. So now I've got my grids and I've got my reports. And what's nice about this is it's really nice when you're in another module, and you don't have to always click 8 times to get to the same place. So what I find is it really helps users to create these because it saves me from having to switch modules. And now I'm going to go to my report here, my vendor aging, because I figure that most time AP clerks will need a vendor aging report, and we'll say Add to Favorites. So if I come in here, I now have grids and reports. I'm going to come in, and now you can see that I'm going to move that object into reports. And now, as you can see, if I am in the, let's say, AR module, sorry, Denise. But if I come in here to the grids and I click All Purchase Orders, it takes me to the grid. So I don't have to click into the module, I don't have to click into Common, I don't have to click into Purchase Orders, I don't have to click into All Purchase Orders, and then I don't have to filter the grid every time I do this. It's also nice because it gets us to the reports as well. So the first mailbag question we got this week was from Jason in New York. He said, "Chad, I saw where you used Open Vendor Invoices grid, but that doesn't seem to match my aging." It's a really good question, Jason. I don't know what version of Microsoft Dynamics AX you're running, but I have seen where that Open Vendor Invoice grid will only show you open vendor invoices to be paid. So if you've done a credit note or something like that, that doesn't necessarily show up in the grid. So you may need to get a developer to tweak the query in that grid. but I have seen that. That's a really good question. I got another question here from Chris in Baltimore, and he actually wrote me a very funny note that said, "Please do not say my name on the podcast for fear that my partner might find out." I thought that was really funny, Chris, and I'm assuming you're making an homage there. But he says, "Best way to do? What is the best way to? I've got my Power Pivot report created. What is the best way to give these reports to users?" I like to use SharePoint, and what I actually like to do is I like to put that in a folder in SharePoint and then link the folder to a rule center. You can also create a gallery that you can then surface in the role center, or you can give them access to the SharePoint. There's many different ways to do that, but I'd always say that as long as I like to use SharePoint, if SharePoint's in your repertoire of how you deploy that, I think that's kind of the best way to go. So I thank you for the time, and again, send your mailbag questions to dynamicsaxguy@gmail.com, or send it to our blog site, or you can post it on the YouTube video. And I hope you join us next time for another episode of 5 Good Minutes in Microsoft Dynamics AX.